Well, that was a session, some session there. The first one on day 2. It started slowly. India were going at less than 2 and over for the first start. KL Rahul and Washington Sundar watchful. And then while it was cooking and simmering, suddenly just took off. There was the wicket of Washington Sundar, the injury to Shubman Gill, the wicket of Rishabh Pant after a cameo, and KL Rahul as well gone. So 138 for 4 is where this game stands. 101 runs, 4 wickets, 25 overs is what we've had. This is Bajaj Finserv Mutual Funds presents ESPNcricinfo Matchday. Lunchtime on day 2 in the fine company of Mr. Sanjay Bangar. And now I have to change my line of question because I thought first India will nicely get to 2 down or 1 down at this lunch session and get a nice lead. But South Africa pulled back, Sanjay, haven't they? That's an even session for you?
Yes, I think it's an even session, and more so South Africa would be very happy with their effort picking up crucial wickets, and 3 of them. And the most important one is of Rishabh Pant, because he can take the game away. He can unsettle the spinners because he clearly forced that change. And because they got in that seam bowler very, very quickly, seeing Rishabh Pant's approach against spin, I thought that was also a clever move. So yes, South Africa very much in the game, and the kind of behavior now that we see on day 2, generally you don't see such turn and bounce. So clearly the cracks that were evident, the dryness of the surface now coming to the fore.
Surface will be discussed in detail in a little while from now, but Vernon Philander would be much happier, I'd believe now. It's over the South African team, Vernon. Imagine going into lunch with Pant, 30 not out of 24 with the 6s is it, and going into lunch where just after 5 minutes previously you've got the wicket of Rishabh Pant. Must be a completely different mood, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot better mood on my side. I think especially after the start this morning. But I think the big wicket South Africa needed this morning was KL Rahul. I think he's really the anchor. He really, steady the ship and allow guys like, Rishabh Pant to play in the fashion that he does play. But I think also really smart from India. I think in the way that they've perhaps targeted, Keshav Maharaj. I think I spoke about the importance of the spinners and the different paces which they operate at. Obviously, Keshav a little bit quicker, so he perhaps put the pace on the ball, and they've really made a target of going after him. But I think the game in the balance at the moment. Obviously, India's slightly ahead in terms of where we are, but I think South Africa has a real chance to fight back after lunch.
Excellent. Let's get more into detail with some of the points that Vernon and Sanjay have made. Let's start with the partnership and the cautious approach from last evening carried on today, which tells us what both of you were saying about the surface. It's not necessarily an easy surface to drive, to play your shots. There was the odd big shot attempted and then a lot of defensive play. So now marry that into what you are making of this pitch and how KL Rahul and Washington Sundar batted this morning.
See, as long as the pace spin combination is going to be in operation, because if you have spinners from both ends, then what happens is that the runs will still come. 2-3 runs every over you can get from both ends, and that's where you feel that runs are coming. You don't feel that the game has stalled. But the moment you get a pacer, then the scoring options, if the pacers are bowling straighter lines, there isn't much the batter can do. If he will have to certainly try something with a lot of risk to try and score runs against pacers. So if South Africa has to stay in the game for a longer period, I believe that spin from both ends against these Indian batters is not going to work, or is not going to be working in their favor. But if they do go to spinners, India will sense that opportunity very quickly, and that can increase the run rate or the scoring area.
Vernon, all yours.
Yeah, I just think for me, I think Corbin Boss perhaps being the seamer for South Africa to be utilised on the surface, and it's all about picking bowlers that's going to be effective on that particular surface. I think Simon Harmer, he's got the pace right, he's got some beautiful loop, and the one thing that really comes with slowing the pace down is that there is absolutely no pace to work with off the surface. So as a batsman, you need to generate your own pace, and therein lies the opportunity. I think if you can complement it with good field, stop the ones. You're forcing batters to then take the aerial route, because as we're all batters or as cricketers, you want to have runs obviously behind your name, and I think as much as as it is a patience game, it's also a game in the modern day where, you see batters being a lot more proactive, batters being a lot more, looking to up the ante, early on in the innings. So I do feel from a patience point of view, that's going to run out, if you can string a couple of good overs together. But I think from a South African perspective, those will be my two go-to men for a longer period of time.
All right, I want to get into the pitch talk now as well. I'll come back to Washington Sundar for just a verdict on how he looked at number 3. But Vernon says there's no pace in this surface, and I think Ravi Shastri called it an ordinary surface just on commentary in this session, where we also saw puff of dust and we saw the ball spinning sharply. Now, what are you making of this pitch at the Eden Gardens?
Generally, you tend to see such such examples on day 4 of a test match cricket in India. So if it starts to turn and explode, and what we saw, there were enough indications that the ball was hitting those cracks, and the cracks, because of the dryness of the surface, you could see the powdery dust coming off. It wasn't the case on day 1. Indian spinners bowled on that track, but the kind of turn that was being extracted by both Keshav Maharaj and even Harmer, there is clear indication that it is now disintegrating much earlier than was what was anticipated.
Vernon, verdict on the pitch so far?
Yeah, I mean, the minute you're going to go dry surface, I think it's only a matter of time, until you're going to see, obviously, the ball, starts misbehaving. But I think we saw it early on day 1. I think when Bumrah bowled it first second over to Aidan Markham, where a couple went through the top. So there were early signs. And again, you ask players, to adapt to certain conditions, but also we have to bear in mind it is still test match cricket. You still want to see the luxury of stroke play, batters getting in, obviously working hard to get in. But once they're in, I think the surface should complement, genuine and proper cricket shots, being able to play. But the surface, of course, being a touch on the dry side. So I think it's more than just technique and temperament. I think there's going to be a real grind and grit, from players to form partnerships. And it's going to be a tough match. I don't think it's going to get any easier. I only foresee this test match actually speeding up, and I think having played a lot of cricket in the subcontinent, I think once the ball starts dripping, turning, with the second new ball, it's going to happen even faster. So I can only foresee the game speeding up from here onwards.
Let's go into that. The stroke play is not something that this pitch seems to be offering even the most gifted batters, and it looks like, therefore, through Rishabh Pant's innings and even Shubman Gill's approach initially, that the way is to loft the ball once you get to the pitch of hit. That's your best chance of getting high percentage runs.
Yeah, that happens on black soil pitches, or pitches with low bounce. What we see generally in the central zone part of the country, places like Uttar Pradesh or Delhi, or even now what we see in Kolkata. So as a batter, if you are not going over the infield, then the chances of you getting higher percentages of your runs in 4s and 6s doesn't really stand a chance, because the singles are also not easily available. So that is one thing that players from the central zone part of the country are very good at lofting balls straight down the track. And I think what Jadeja showed in his very short innings is that because Saurashtra also has this knack of playing on some turning tracks, and he straight away got that sweep shot on. So that is something that you will see now, that the players would adopt those sort of game plans, wherein sweep will come into play much more often, as also players going down the track and looking to clear the infield, not necessarily trying to hit boundaries, but also trying to hit sixes.
You know the history of this ground, and this is one of India's most iconic venues, and it's given us so many different kinds of test match surfaces. Not long ago, there was pace and bounce. Remember in India-Sri Lanka test, I think, where it was really moving to all paths. There's a day-night test that was last played over here. The epic 2001 test was played here. Are you surprised by this Eden Garden surface, and why we're seeing this very dry, very difficult to play, free-flowing shots on type surface?
See, there was a time wherein Kolkata and Eden Gardens had changed its entire, the way the pitch used to behave. Earlier it was a good batting surface, and then it used to assist turn. then there was a time wherein it became a seamer's paradise, because a lot of grass was left. And I think that period also coincided with Sourav Ganguly being the president of Bengal Cricket Association. So now he's back again. So it will be interesting to see whether there is a change in the nature of the surfaces once he's back at the helm.
Okay, well, for now, let's just look at the other positives in this session from both teams' standpoints. Let's start with you, Vernon, and just South Africa staying in the game. Temba Bavuma's bowling changes seem pretty sharp. There's a brief period where the spinners bowled in tandem, but immediately got Corbin Bosch on towards the end of that session, and it really led to the wicket of Rishabh Pant. Is that a good session so far, the South African captain?
Yeah, I think if you have to look back, you probably analyze and you'd say to yourself as a South African, perhaps too many runs conceded. I think, just over 100 runs being scored on that kind of surface, where the whole game has been going under 2. So perhaps a few too many runs conceded. But I do feel that the combination between seam and spin is one that you have to visit, more regularly. And I think for me, that the more productive bowler on that kind of surface will be a Corbin Bosch. I think, of course, with Marco Jansen and his height, from time to time he just gets the length a bit too short, so he doesn't bring the stumps into play. So I think also from a seam's perspective, those catches in front of the wicket is going to be of vital importance. I think catching cover, catching mid wicket, play around with the angles on the crease. So just to create a few more opportunities. I don't think it's a surface where a batter can walk in and start bossing the ball square of the stump. So again, you want to try and get it a touch fuller because I think that's where you're going to reap most of your rewards. But I do feel the combination between spin and seam is the one that seems to be fruitful on the surface.
Sanjay, you want to add something on just the way South Africa bowled? I think it was brought up on commentary too that Jansen wasn't hitting the stumps or getting the ball to hit the stumps as much as Bumrah and Siraj were yesterday.
Yeah, that can be a challenge for any bowler to clearly alter the style of bowling, because if somebody bowls that hit the wicket type of a length on a regular basis, how can he very quickly get that length slightly fuller up? So that is where the coaches in the dressing room certainly have to play a part in terms of what is the best way technically to help them get their length slightly fuller up. So that is a challenge, but I still think that with the left-hander there, with Jadeja there, the ball coming back in or even darting back in, if it's the reverse swing is going to come into play, and we haven't really seen that aspect so far from the South Africans, which I expect that you can see in the second session, because yesterday on day 1 we didn't see reverse swing straight up in the first session, but come the second session there was certainly more on offer with a slightly older ball, and I would certainly want to see South Africa pacers exploiting that to their advantage.
Right, that's going to come, and I'm going to get the very popular and accurate Sanjay Bangar prediction in a few minutes from now. But just as we close out South Africa's talking points from this session, Simon Harmer, big impact, Vernon?
Yeah, I think I just love the pace. I mean, he's got wonderful control, and again, he challenged the bat on the inside and the outside edges, and I think that's key on this particular surface. But more importantly, he's allowing the surface to do the work. I think we've seen a couple of balls, where it really starts to take the dust, and you really need to slow it up in order, to get that sort of reaction out of the surface. But I think wonderful control again. I mean, we talk about his experience of playing cricket all around the world. And again, I think he's really putting it into play today. But again, wonderful control. Yes, perhaps, Temba reverting to him a little bit too late in the session. I think, you want to be a little bit more proactive as a captain as well. You want to sum up conditions a little earlier. I think that the initial partnership, just taking it a little bit too deep. But once he got on, I think, he certainly proved to be the most effective spinner. I think I also spoke about, spinners that will be effective in these kind of conditions. Yet again, I will throw that name Mutasami at you. I just think, it's really about the pace that you do bowl on these sort of surfaces. Why is Kuldeep, you have so effective? He bowls it very slow through the air and is allowing the surface, to play its part.
All right. Well, let's just get some more verdicts from Sanjay Bangar before we wrap things up. Washington Sundar, number 3, patient innings, tough innings, one exquisite shot over 6, I think, of Keshav Maharaj it was. What is your verdict on Washi's first outing as a number 3 batter?
I mean, it's a stopgap arrangement. It can't be a long-term arrangement. That's what I see. because as a number 3, it's not necessarily that just blocking the game, because you also have to take the game forward. And if that thing happens, if KL Rahul was also in that ultra cautious mode and the batsman at the other end is also on a similar lines, then yes, they can play time. But for a number 3, it's also critical that as much as he puts a price tag on his wickets, he also has that ability to put the pressure back on the opponent and move the game forward. So I certainly see that it's going to be a short term or a short stopgap arrangement, not a long term arrangement.
All right. And the other incident which was curious was Shubman Gill's what looked like an innocuous injury, looked like some kind of muscle issue. Is there anything that you can speculate as to what would have troubled Gill when he's just walked in, second ball hit a 4 and held his neck and gone off?
Hard to fathom from here, but at times it could really be periods of inactivity when you're sitting in the dressing room and suddenly you go and play the ball, play a particular shot first up. That can cause that sort of a spasm, or else it could also be certain training habits, like if you get into that lifting habits of a slightly heavier weight above your shoulder. That could also be a reason, but I mean, it's very, very hard to fathom from such a long distance.
Yeah. My aches and pains have nothing to do with heavy weightlifting, but let's ask the athletes or former athletes. Vernon, Philander, anything that you could make on what happened to Shubman Gill there?
I think those reclining chairs are way too comfortable up in the dressing room. I think, yeah, sometimes you get these, these tweets. I mean, it's obviously, supreme athletes. These things do happen. Hopefully it's not, too serious for Shubman. Hopefully it's just a little spasm. But yeah, these things do pop up from time to time. You can ask us bowlers. I mean, we've got way more niggles than that.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I imagine there'll be a little bit of application of maybe an ice pack or something, and then you might have a Shubman Gill feature at some point in this innings. Very quickly, Rishabh Pant came in, got the crowd entertained. You could see the roar that the Eden Gardens received him with, and in a short, sharp cameo, he's become India's highest 6-hitter in tests, going past Virender Sehwag in nearly 100 fewer innings.
That's a massive stat, because it shows the kind of flair, it shows the kind of impact that he can have. And at times when he gets out attempting those shots, he's not going to look good getting out in those fashions. But he's a guy who can bring a lot of crowds to the to Test cricket, can really be a contributing factor to make Test cricket popular, because he brings in those fans who wants to see such kind of efforts, because I mean, it can be very, very courageous at times. So you require Rishabh Pant playing in that fashion and not really curb his natural instincts.
And he's an established, proper Test match great of his time, I'd say, Vernon. You've seen him in South Africa. I think one of his better hundreds, albeit in a losing cause, was that Cape Town Test in 2022. But this is an incredible stat for a player who's successful in overseas conditions as an Indian batter, goes past or becomes the fastest Indian to 100 sixes. Just your thoughts on the man?
Yeah, I think I really enjoy, the way he approaches his game. I think he's a highly energetic player, but he's a dangerous player. I think for any bowler, you can maybe run through the top order, but then he walks to the crease. He's a bit like Adam Gilchrist back in the day for Australia. He's a guy that can really make it and turn it on. And as a bowler, there's no time to settle in. But yeah, he brings real good excitement to the game. And I think he certainly, put a few more bumps and seats when it comes to Test match cricket these days. But an exciting player to watch and a dangerous player, when he gets going.
All right. That is about Rishabh Pant. South Africa will be very happy to see the back of Pant. And now let's look ahead to this next session and try and get where this game stands. Now, Vernon said he expects this Test match to move quickly, and you said it's only going to, it possibly could get harder for the batters. So now is the time. The world focuses on Sanjay Bangar's second session prediction for day 2. Mr. Bangar.
So maybe 3 wickets for South Africa, but 2 to fall to pacers and only 1 to spinners, because the reason I feel that reverse swing is going to come into play, and the softness of the ball might not help spinners being that much more penetrative.
You could see Vernon. Sanjay has picked up some, he's almost sort of, he's buying into the confidence of his predictions. He's getting more and more detailed and specific. He loves it. Right, give me yours now.
Absolutely love it. I think I called it 5 down by lunch today. Compliments of the captain, Sipman Gill. We've got 5 so far. But yeah, I'm edging closer. I'm edging closer on this one. I think South Africa is going to have a real good session with ball in hand. I think they're going to have India, if not all out, they're going to have them 9 down by the end of the session.
All right, what I want to ask both of you very quickly is, looking at the way this surface is playing and the way this game might go, what kind of lead keeps the game in the balance, and is a 50-run lead worth almost twice as many, or is the game still, do South Africa still have some breathing room? What do you make, Sanjay? India's deficit is 21 right now.
See, I would want to say that India would be happy to chase anything under 150 on this surface in the 4th innings. So it will all depend on where South Africa obviously has to bat really, really well to get to that sort of a score. So I think a team batting in the 4th innings, anything above 160, they would certainly feel that it's going to be a difficult task.
Vernon?
Gee, Sanjay, you've changed your mind. Yesterday the surface was bettable, it was playable, but yeah, I think any lead in excess of, I would say, 50, 60 runs is going to be massive on the surface. I think from a South African perspective, they want to try and restrict India to as little as possible. Obviously, try and wrap up these last couple of wickets as quickly as possible. But I do feel any lead on this particular surface is going to be key for India.
Would you like to respond to one of those outswingers from Philander?
At times he bowls a lot of outswingers, so I'll let them go. But if he's attempting to get me bowled, then I will say that yes, this wicket, this test would go into day 4, not necessarily wrap things up in day 3.
Just watch out for the one nipping back, Sanjay, that's all.
Oh, love it. Thank you very much, Vernon Philander, Sanjay Bangar. Why don't we pick things up over a nice cup of tea in a couple of hours, where we look forward to your company on Bajaj Finserv Mutual Funds presents ESPN Cricinfo Matchday. See you then.